Hello, you beautiful souls. This is Shane of Unbiased and On the Fence. Well, this message is really for love light workers, those with a service to others, energy, and there's a lot going on right now. These are amazing times, and whether people realize it or not, we're going to look back on these as some of the most pivotal and amazing and transformative times of many of our lifetimes. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot to distract. There's a lot to uh, feel concerned about. And that is how this whole thing is framed, that these are uncertain times. And it's that uncertainty that doesn't resonate with me, because in the deepest part of me, I know, I can feel, I can see all of this is serving a much higher purpose. And sure, there's a lot of pain, there's loss, there's disruption to people's lives that are so important to them. I get it, but sometimes that's what we need to wake us up. And sometimes that's just how things play out. And I know there's a lot of empaths in the community, and this can be a tough time for you. And I know this message is the message that I got that I want to share with you all today is basically, uh, it was for me, but I know many people will resonate with it. And it's going to be those people that, in the deepest part of your core, you know these aren't uncertain times. You know this is all. You can pull back to a point where you can see this is all like a well-oiled engine. Everything's working towards greater and greater expansion and awareness, and all of these are catalysts to move people either further into their service to self uh, energy, or further into the service to others energy. And I can see with a lot of these things that we see, is although they're painful, they're pushing people really hard towards the service to others energy. And if we're looking at some sort of split, that's what we're looking at, the split in the energy of service to self, service to others. And that's why the information came through that was talking about that if you're having a bad day, your vibes are low, you're not feeling great, maybe you've watched something, you're in a lot of fear or whatever, that doesn't mean that your service to self all of a sudden, just because you get into fear. You're still, it's not like you're going to miss the bus. As they said, that was such an important message for people to realize right now, that it doesn't really matter how lost anybody you know, that you feel like they're completely asleep. At their core resonance, if they're more service to others, then their lack of knowledge or understanding of what's even going on right now, all of that's irrelevant. I mean, you can tell there's the loving people in every group and category, and it's silly for us to think that just because maybe they don't fully understand what's happening, or that they're having a bad day, that they just automatically go with those of the service to self faction, those who have been running the world. It doesn't mean that they're more in line with that, because they're not. These are loving people that are, many are just trying to pay their bills and get along, and they just haven't had the time, or even just the drive to seek out any more truth or whatever. But that doesn't mean that they aren't loving, service to others oriented. So I think that's really important, not to worry about people, to allow people to be on the journey where they are. And this has been coming to me really strong about this time of what we're really trying to move more and more into our higher self, becoming more and more of our higher self. And and as we do that, we pull back from the emotions. And it even came to me, I got triggered in the morning. I was Actually, a couple of days ago, I watched a video and I got triggered. And in that triggering, I've been noticing that, I mean, it used to be you notice you get triggered and you just try to undo it or whatever. But lately, I've been taking these triggers and really getting them under the microscope. Like, why did I get triggered? What was the actual cause? And as I did that, I noticed that what a trigger is like, well, we think of what a traditional trigger is. It's something that, like a switch you flip, basically, right? So that switch that is actually getting flipped is you moving into a lower, more unconscious part of yourself, version of yourself. So if you are operating in the higher self, that trigger means you just moved from your higher self to the emotional ego person, and you became the voice, as it were, the voice in your head. And as I've been moving through this process and trying to really be in the now, one of the things I notice is that you begin to not relate with the voices that you hear in your head. You realize that, much like the cartoons depict an angel or a devil on the shoulders, these voices are not you. You're the observer of these voices. So when you get triggered, you move from the observer to the voice, is what I'm trying to get at. And so I'm watching this video, and it was a couple of spiritual, really over 1 million subscribers size spiritual type YouTubers, talking about the current uncertainty. And I want to use that word like that because I don't feel like these are uncertain times at all. I feel like on one level, that's a truth that people resonate with because that's what they're looking at. And of course, from that point of view, it looks uncertain. But there's a level of taking a step back and seeing the overall picture and realizing that all of these things that are perceived as setbacks, they're actually catalysts that are waking people up. And there's so many of them right now. And many in our community are really feeling that momentum. There is a lot of energy going on right now. As the world has seemed to, much of it has grinded to a halt. There is so much energy right now. It's like when a roller coaster gets at the top and then, it starts to move down and as the tail end of it all gets over the hump, it's like in full downward motion, full swing. And that's where we are in the shift right now. So the energy people are picking up on is the energy of all of this momentum of ing, like awakening and moving and truthing, just the action of this time. And for many people, even like on a roller coaster, for some people, they love to throw their hands up and say, woo, going down and enjoy it. Other people want to just close their eyes and wait for it to get over with. And so I understand that people are perceiving this whole current event in different ways. Even those who know that these are certain times, there's no uncertainty to this at all. I understand that, it's easy to get wrapped up in the drama. But for some people, that's exciting. They can say woo and watch it. For other people, maybe you want to tune it out, turn it off. I mean, you can pretty much just get out and go around. If you turn off all the forms of media, you wouldn't even really know anything that's going on, other than a few people wearing face masks if you are out and about or something. But for the most part, everything's fine. I mean, you can get out, you can get away. I like to go to the airport and sit near the runway and watch the planes and just get out by myself, clear my head, meditate, contemplate, and become really more mindful. So as I'm watching these spiritual leaders talk about, sure, there's 3D, there's metaphysical, but we're looking at this. There's 5D and then there's 3D, and there's the separation between the two, and then moving it into focusing on the tyranny and all of this that's going on. And I was kind of surprised, but, I was okay with it. I wasn't triggered at that point. It wasn't until they actually said, and then we got these people that's all about love and light that don't realize that their freedoms are being stolen. And they went on and on. I can't remember the exact word, but it was like I felt attacked for like all of about 2 seconds. It's funny. So I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Why did so I honed in on that. Why did I get triggered just then? I felt attacked. Sure, I felt like my point of view, which I'm usually okay with differing points of view because I'm open-minded, so I'm open to at least other people being allowed to think what they want to think. I'm totally, because, I understand that a journey is there's this constant movement on a journeys, and a lot of people are constantly trying to get people, you need to come right here where I'm at on my journey right now. And this is the right place to be, but then yet they're either not making any progress on their journey because people do set up camp. They drop into a worldview, feel like they've sort of figured it all out. It's all handled. They set up camp there, and there's no forward momentum in their spiritual growth or anything. And they want other people to set up camp with them. So, I totally see it that way. So I'm totally cool with just letting people camp if they want to camp, journey if they want to journey, whatever. It's people's own experience. It's really a very individual journey. So when I realized how much I was triggered, I looked at why I was triggered, and it was because of the audience. I felt like, in a way, I was like, I felt like they should have known better, or, I'm like, this is all ego, I realize, so I'm examining why I got triggered, and I felt like they should have known better. They got this huge audience, and then immediately, as soon as you start examining, I automatically pop into the other, and you can say, well, yeah, I was getting into ego, right? I was feeling like, they've got all these people watching them, and they're putting out the wrong message. But there's a certain level of playing this game well, being a key player, playing the game well, scoring high in class, just this mentality of us really trying to make the best of everything as we move forward, to have to be on the most optimal timeline. And I think as soon as you move, if one of those people that's moved out of the victim mentality, that this is about about tyranny and having our rights stolen and freedoms and being forced to take medications and things like this, right? When you move out of that victim mentality and move into the key player role of actually taking part, and it's like that on an individual basis, because basically what I was talking about being triggered, it's much like being in a car. You're in control, you're driving it, you've got two people running their mouth in the car with you back and forth, and this is sort of like, taking that higher perspective, recognizing you're not these people that's riding along with you running their mouth, right? And then all of a sudden you get triggered and you let one of them hop in the driver's seat, you know? So it's this picture I got of, this happens all the time. It's not like you can take this higher perspective and all of a sudden you don't get triggered and pulled back into the lower ego, and that you can't get pulled back in and stuck there and worried about what you see going on in the news and all of this. But there's this level of, deep down inside, you really know. And the word that came to me that I wanted to share, um, and it's so funny because as I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about how people should just follow their own heart, and how you get these synchronicities that seem to line up whenever you're on your path and you're following your heart. And typically, anytime I think of synchronicities, I look at the clock. And at that moment, I looked at the clock. It was 7:16 a.m. And I was like, oh, it's not a synchronicity. But it actually made the scripture Mark 7:16 pop in my head, which is that one about ears to hear, for those who have ears to hear. So it's actually pretty fitting for the beginning of this message. So this is for those who have ears to hear, or for those who this message resonates with. I got that the ultimate truth right now to keep in the forefront of our minds is there's no better time than now. And and I love this because this is, I guess some time ago, it's my discernment on what I'm getting that comes to me, I used to really wonder, I'm like, how can people be so sure that's not just their mind? And and I felt like I could never trust something enough to ever go like public with information. You know what I mean? But this particular message, you begin to recognize when it's from within or from your higher self, and have greater and greater discernment. And that's one of the things that meditation, contemplation, all of these things have really been helping me recognize, and also being mindful of, realizing you're the observer of those voices in your head. All of these have added to sort of my discernment of realizing when I'm getting having an epiphany. A lot of times it unpacks with so much information that you couldn't have done that. And many times when it's like that, you're in tears and everything. But with this particular time, I just got this one line: "There's no better time than now." And as I went and I wrote it down, because it was one of those things that I was like, you know what, I'll remember it. And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to remember it. I better just go write it down. So I felt really compelled to write it down. So as soon as I wrote it down, more came, and I wrote that down, and more came, and I wrote that down. And I don't think this is quite like what they call automatic writing. It was more like I was just getting like lines of dictation, and then some of the stuff I would have a question to. So it was almost like this dialogue going on. So I'm just sharing it. This was really a message. I wanted to explain kind of how this came to me, so that you realize that I'm not really saying this is a message I'm trying to push on anyone else. If it resonates with you, great. If not, I understand. Okay, so there's no better time than now. Once I wrote that down, I started thinking, there's a 3D level where you can think of it, well, that sounds like you're saying things won't improve or that things won't get better. This is as good as it's going to get, which sounds like the opposite of Cynthia. I love you, Cynthia. Cynthia Sue Larson. How good can it get? Uh, so, once again, we have these sort of polar opposites of how things sound and then how they really are. And from the higher perspective, it doesn't mean things don't improve. It means that all that we want is available right now. And it's really us getting beyond the limitations of our mind. And these energies right now are really conducive to tapping into your higher self and getting this higher perspective, this calm, this peace that passes all understanding that the Bible talks about. And it really, this is beyond worldviews. This is like tapping into the core of who we really are. Each and every one of us on an individual level, our higher self, that higher mind that we're trying to move into. And it's available now, and it's getting easier and easier. And just the fact that I was able to come up with this, and the way this message came to me with such ease, I would write something, the next thing would come. So it's here, it's now, it's available. You don't have to see it. It's nothing that you need to see. You just tap into it. You just become your higher self by taking that step back, by taking a moment to breathe consciously. So that was the thing that came to me. We're like on autopilot a lot of the times. A lot of times one of those voices are driving the car, like I was just talking. When you take a moment to take that conscious breath periodically throughout the day, you've now taking something that's automatic. Breathing, you don't have to think about breathing. It happens automatic. You've taken control of it again. It's like you're like, hey, I'll take the wheel. Step aside. You take that conscious breath. Breathe in really deep. Hold it for a moment. And then let a good sigh out. A sigh of relief that you don't have to have all the answers on a conscious level. That deep down inside, it's all working out perfectly. That there's a part of you, a higher part of you, that is out of time, in complete knowledge and understanding of what's going on, and that you don't have to know, and that you'll be guided and led where you need to go, and you'll take part in what you need to take part in, and you'll feel that drive in your heart to do what you're supposed to do. It's all so automatic. It's all about getting in the flow. And it really starts with this conscious breath of taking a moment to take a breath. You can do it right now. Breathe in. And then you sigh, that sigh of relief. I find that's really powerful. But it brings you back into the moment. You know how many in our community see these synchronicities that go well beyond. I mean, I just gave an example with the time not lining up, but it aligned to a scripture, and more and more people in the community see these synchronicities and notice these things happening. And I've reached a point now where I realize it's not, uh, what we call it, incidents. It's not separate things. It's actually a constant stream of synchronistic energy, if you will. I mean, you can always find it. It's always there. You don't have to wait. You're like, I wonder if there's like, I mean, you can look for it, and you should always look for it, but it's always there. It's like Easter eggs. And that kind of gets back to that whole Easter egg teaching that kind of came to me or whatever. But you can also see things in reality begin to reflect back to you the changes we see. We see this with a lot of Mandela effects too, I believe. I believe a lot of these are just direct. I think sometimes things need to change so much they can't do it gradual enough, and it just like, bam, rainbow mountains appear, right? Or some of the other things. Or it's a huge one, like the thinker. Because this whole thing came back, the whole teaching of the thinker came back to me, how he used to have his fist to his forehead, with his eyes closed, and he was thinking with his mind. And I remember at the time when I got that message about the thinker Mandela effect, because of course he's staring at the ground now with his hand by his mouth, under his chin. It's changed a few different times now. I think he's like sucking on his knuckles or something. At any rate, he's staring at the ground with his eyes open. And at the time, that whole walk by faith and not by sight scripture had came to me, that we had moved away from that. We had moved away from that knowing, that core in our core, that knowing in our core, that part that gets ignited when you perform any really service to others act, when you help someone. That part of you that just, it's just such a bliss, such a satisfaction when you're like in the flow. And right now, I think all of the stuff for us light workers can be a distraction to get us out of that flow. Doesn't mean you're going to miss the bus or anything, but it can really highly affect your experience of this. And it can actually possibly, well, from one level, slow down things in your experience from progressing as quickly as they would if you could sort of, like the thing I was just saying about the triggering. As soon as I realized that, hey, I'm in class, I got triggered. That's an assignment. A trigger is an assignment, and I view it that way. Or I view it as, I like to think of it because I'm a gamer, bonus round. So immediately I get triggered. I hear bonus round in my head. I turn the whole thing into a game, and that's why I said, like, I got triggered earlier, from this video I watched, and it was like 2 seconds before I'm like, okay, the trigger happened. Let's hone in on why this happened, what triggered it, and so really to wrap that part of the story up, as soon as I moved into my higher self and saw what was going on and realized that they've got millions of people watching their videos right now. Their message is for those people watching their videos. Their message isn't for me. My message isn't for them. And it's not my place to say, it's, even Mr. Unbiased and on the fence, here I am, because I felt like I was attacked, because I guess I just got triggered because I felt like they should be okay with allowing people to be on their journey, on their path where they were. But really, that was me stepping in the ego and being judgmental about the whole thing, and not, once again, taking that higher perspective of seeing that they're actually serving who they need to be serving right now. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And just because I have a minority of people in the community that tune into me, we really are in a minority. There's not a lot of people that, you got to admit it. I mean, we're pretty. I'm sure. I'm sure. Like I would have thought I was pretty flaky in earlier times of my life. I would have seemed pretty far out there. And it's just like that. That's just the nature of it. And so I can't expect other people that are pushing out their message to understand that we are actually supporting them right now, energetically. Um, and even if someone, groups go gather and picket or do anything like that, maybe we get the word out for them. Maybe we don't participate on that level, but energetically, maybe we do. Maybe you feel compelled to go out there. Maybe you're going to be the peacemaker in the crowd and keep violence from breaking out. Who knows? That's why it's important for each and every one of us to really follow our heart, because opportunities will arise and we can be of service to others. That's what this whole thing is all about. It's all about service to others. And once we can get enough people doing that, then everybody's looking out for everyone, you know? In that perfect world, like Tom Campbell talks about, where you can actually get to this point where if every single person was all about service to others, why would you need locks on doors and keys for things? Because you've got everyone looking out for you. So I know that could be a long way off before we're completely to something like that. Maybe not. I don't know. Could be tomorrow. Who knows? And that's really the limitations that we put on things. It comes down to that the limitations we put on things. It's available now. How good can it get right now? Right? So as this teaching was coming to me, it was like sort of like it came to me that it's like you become your higher self. You begin to like look over your shoulder, and you could see two people arguing, and if you're just sort of the third person looking over the shoulder, you're not as invested in the emotion of the situation, and you're able to be a little more clear-headed about what's going on. And you can actually be that way for yourself. You can take this higher self perspective where you're not getting triggered. You can get to the point where you stay in that higher self, you know, most of the time, and then examine it when you do get triggered so it doesn't happen again. Because, like I said, those are lessons to be learned. Those are bonus rounds. And if you deal with it, it won't come up again. It's just that so many times we don't realize it. We get in the victim mentality and things happen over and over and over and over to us again. And we don't realize that there's a lesson to be learned. And if we just learn it, we could move on. So this over your shoulder sort of watching, you know, from a third person point of view, your own self, not literally, but from a consciousness point of view, a higher consciousness point of view. So it flashed in my head the way, reality reflects back to you. And one of the things as a gamer that I've realized, there's been a shift from first person shooter games to third person shooter games. So like where you run around and you're actually holding the weapon. You don't see yourself on the screen. You only see your hands holding a weapon or a tool or whatever game you're playing. It's like a first person sort of point of view. And then lately it's been moving to this where you're looking at your player from behind. You're following behind. Fortnite now, instead of even the shooter games, that's why I'm pointing this out, because Fortnite would be like a newer version of Call of Duty, still around, but it's like the newer version, and it adds a tactical advantage within these games, because what you can do is you can be behind a wall, but your point of view is not behind the wall, so you can see if there's someone around there. It allows you to see around corners. So the whole thing that came to me with seeing this picture in my head was just showing me how you have greater insight, greater foresight, because it's in the way in the game it gives you a tactical advantage. In our lives, it's giving us a tactical advantage, because once you're looking from this third person higher self point of view, you're just you just have a greater understanding. And it's this that's directly attached to, that's when it went into how this is going to revolutionize the lives of empaths. Why? because it's this knowledge and understanding, this third person sort of point of view, that will actually bring about a greater appreciation for the gift you have of being an empath. I know for many people they feel like it's a curse, but with this greater understanding about what's going on, this higher perspective, you're able to release the struggles that are associated with it. Because now you can observe these lower vibrational emotions and even interact with them without actually lowering your own vibration. And it's all about this perspective of the higher self, where you can love on somebody, you can comfort them, you can be compassionate to them, but somewhere in the back of your mind, you understand that despite the 3D appearances of what's going on in this person's life, it could be horrible, it could be a tragedy. This is some of and actually the worse it is, the more they're going to grow. This is where we grow the most, is through adversity, through the hard times, through the tragedies and the hardships. So it doesn't mean we're not compassionate. It doesn't mean we don't have a heart for these people. It just means that we don't we use that understanding to not allow ourselves to get pulled down so that we can be compassionate. We can, instead of avoiding people like this because we don't want our vibes to drop, we can go in with confidence knowing that we can help and support people that might be totally, saturated in fear or sadness or depression or whatever it is, and know that it's serving some sort of purpose, and that when you're in the flow of things, you're going to just sort of automatically do whatever that person needs you to do for them. You're going to say the right thing. And it's just really being confident in that connection to our higher self. And the more that you reside there in your higher self, the more it becomes sort of your default place. And that's what this whole big break at home has been for me, is it's allowed me to, because I'm the transportation. We got there's a family of 7 with 2 grandkids. There's like 9. Of course, 2 of my kids and the grandkids don't live here, but they're here a lot of the time. And so things can get pretty noisy, and but I'm the transportation for a lot of what goes on, or all of what goes on with so all of that's been taken care of. I don't, I'm not having to kind of have in the back of my mind where I got to go, who I got to pick up next and stuff like that. So that's really freed me to not worry about, to go in the time of no time that Kimberly Lynn Hansen talks about. Just, I've lost track of the time of day and so much. I've just been drawing and really just tapping in. And I really hope I can encourage all you guys, all of you out there that, I know you can feel that deep down inside that it's all working out to the better, the growth. This is a great time of transformation. Sure, I know there's people in a lot of pain, and if anybody comes into my sphere of influence, my heart will go out to them. I will be compassionate and help them in any way I can. And, beyond that, I think it can just wear you down. It can pull you down if you're just watching videos of people in different cities and the tyranny and all of the stuff that's going on right now, because it's being taken care of. And but if you feel a drive to do something with that, go do it. But if you know you're not going to go do anything with that, then wait for the petition to cross your email box and sign it, or whatever comes across. Know that your higher self won't let you miss any opportunities to be a part of it. But if that's your drive and you feel like organizing something, by all means, go do that too. Just go wherever your heart is leading you. And I think that's really, going within is really the only way to go at this time, because there's so many things going on so many levels. And if you take a step back, you can see how, it's all catalysts waking people up. But it's easy to sort of be like, well, what if I'm wrong about this? And what if, look, I'm telling you that my own inner guidance, the people that I feel are the most connected and intuitive, people that I look up to, people that I trust, are getting the same exact things I'm getting. And I've just got to trust what I'm feeling on the inside, that despite appearances, everything is working out absolutely perfectly. I love you guys. Hang in there. See you in the next one.